Good afternoon, welcome to Rundlii Gaming. So we're going to be doing another video. This particular video is on how to play the game of Resistance. Resistance comes in a really small box. There's a couple different versions of it. This is one of the older ones. They actually have a new Kickstarter that came out not too long ago that has a bunch more stuff in it, a bunch more, I guess you can call them like mini expansions. But we're going to go over pretty much the base edition of Resistance. Now, we're going to go over some different things that are on the table here. The game itself, this is pretty much the majority of the components. Now, there are more of each of these types of components. Like, there's more of the reject and approves, there's more fail cards and success cards here. There's a few more of those kind of cards. And with the base edition, we'll pretty much go over the object of the game itself is that each player is going to be given a spy card or a resistance card at the beginning of the game. This card you can never reveal to anybody for any reason. You cannot show to anybody. And then from there, each player is going to try and either pass or fail the missions according to what their faction is. If you are a blue card, which is resistance, you can only throw success out of these cards when they're given to you. The spy can choose to either fail or succeed. It's completely up to them as to whether or not they would like to do that or not. Now, if you throw a fail card and there's a single fail within the mission itself, it will fail it with the exception of certain instances where it does require two fails to do so. That is usually in higher player games. In the lower player games, it's usually one fail equals a failed mission completely. So, because basically the spies are trying to get onto the mission in order to fail them, in order to, take down the resistance. Now, what's going to happen is, in this particular game, you will have a board. So we'll say if we're playing with 5 players, which it'll tell you right here on, you will have 2 spies. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to deal out 2 spies and 3 resistance. Now, there are different variations of the game. If your group is particularly good at lying to people, it can sometimes be ideal to do blind spies as compared to where spies know each other, unless you're playing with some additional variants of the game. But with these different cards, usually I have each person pick one of these that they want to actually be. So, one of the cards randomly. So at this point, each player now has a role card. At this point, you cannot show that to anybody. And then you'll be given 2 of these vote things here. One says approve, one says reject. This is to vote as to whether or not you feel that the leader of this particular group is making a good decision. On that, it's strictly majority vote, majority wins. If it's, say, 6 players in the game, there's 3 approve, 3 reject. It always goes to the reject because you did not actually get a majority. Split vote always goes to the reject. And then after that, you'll have some of these guns, which basically the guns are just for saying who you want to win this particular mission. You'll have a card itself. This here will be for keeping track of the vote track. Pretty much what the vote track is, if the mission itself rejects 5 times in a row, then the game itself ends and the spies win because the resistance can't come together enough to decide on a team, which basically means that the spies have done so well that they can't even conduct a mission anymore. And then you'll have your 5 missions here. Like on this particular one, it says mission 1, take 2 people. Mission 2, you take 3 people. Mission 3, you take 2 people, etc. Now these will differ depending on the number of players. For example, you have 7 players, which will have 3 spies. You'll have 2 people on the first mission, 3 in the second, 3 in the third, 4 in the second, 4 in the fifth. These also have in writing above it, 2 fails are required. So on these 2 missions, it requires 2 failures in order to fail that particular mission. And again, with 9 players, it starts out with 3, then 4, then 4, then 5, then 5. 2 fails are required after on those 5s. So the goal of the game itself for the resistance are to try and deduct who the spies are and not put them on missions, because if you put them on missions, they're going to fail it. Now that may sound easy to do, because as soon as someone throws a fail card, then you obviously know, but there's actually a lot of little things to try to make sure that people can't just find that out very easily. But we're going to do a couple, a short demonstration of how the game itself plays. So the turn itself starts out with each of these people. Now we do know at this table that we have 2 spies. So out of these 5 players, 2 of them are dirty spies. Now it could be me. It might not be. Could be this person. Could be this person. Could be that person. Or it could be this person. So we know that out of the 5 different players here, 2 of these people are spies and are trying to sabotage the group here. Now at this point, the first player will be given to someone. So we'll say it's given to this player here. And now at this point, they get to put 2 people that they choose on this particular mission. So they'll hand out these guns, people that they feel should go on this mission. So let's say I decided to go with this one and to send myself. So this player here and myself. Now each person at this point is going to determine whether or not they approve or reject this particular vote. Now they know that this leader decided that these 2 people should go. Now normally this would all be face down, but just to make it easier, I'm going to have these things face up just for demonstration purposes. But let's say this person approves, this person approves, this person rejected, this person approved, this person approved. So at this point we have 4 approves, 1 reject. Now this could cause some issues because some people maybe go, why is he rejected already? Maybe he's a spy. Or maybe he knows that something at this table that no one else knows. Or maybe he just thinks that someone on this particular team is a spy. Now at this point, since it was approved, we each take back our vote. And then they get a success or fail card. Now these will be given to them, and then the player chooses based on what they feel that they should vote, and then there will be a discard pile. A lot of times what we'll use is like the box itself. That way you can throw the vote inside, you can throw the discard on the outside. And then at this point, this player will and discard. Now, at this point, you will shuffle both the discard pile as well as the vote pile. And the reason for this is that way no one can go, well, I seen that the top card was from so-and-so player, the bottom card was from other player, so therefore, that was obviously the fail card. Or the success card, depending on what's on there. So in this case, we have 1 success and 1 fail. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that there's not 2 spies, but we know on here there's definitely at least 1 spy, because the spies can throw success or fail. He does not have to actually throw a fail, but he can also throw a success instead of a fail. So we know out of these 2 people, you have a spy. At this point though, it's going to be hard to really determine on who that may be, but nevertheless, you do know that at least one of those 2 are spies. Now these 2 definitely know who threw what, because so at this point, this person may be thinking, well, I either threw the success or I threw the fail, so obviously he threw the other, but the person that also threw the fail is probably also trying to throw the blame on the resistance guy to kind of mess with things further. So the discard pile itself is also supposed to be shuffled, just to make sure that, again, you can't tell who threw what. Now we know on this particular mission that it was failed here. And next, the turn marker goes to the next person. So let's say that this person decided, well, I like to make bad decisions, and so therefore I'm going to send the same 2 and a 3rd. Now at this point, the team then gets to pick and choose whether or not this mission should go forward. Now, any half-sane player would know that perhaps this isn't a good idea. We know that between these two there's definitely a spy. So obviously you do not want this mission to go forward if you're not a spy, or if you're... Perhaps this was a lack of judgment on his part, but nevertheless, let's say he did go with this particular decision. At this point, each player can then make their vote on it. So let's go ahead and say we got 4 rejects. He approved his own because he decided that, that was still a good decision. And then you have 4 reject here, which means that this particular mission is going to not continue forward. And at this point, this would actually trigger the first on here. Now, if you get a successful mission, it's going to get rid of this, so it's perfectly fine. So at this point, the mission that we chose is not going to happen. So again, you take your cards back. And now at this point, we have the next decision. So he's going to try to figure out someone that he may trust at this particular table to go on this particular mission. So let's say he no longer trusts this guy because he made a very obviously bad decision. So we're going to throw here, here, and here. So at this point, each of these people are going to decide on if they feel that this particular mission is a good idea or a bad idea. So let's say he approves his own. He will also approve. He will reject. He will approve. And he will also approve. So at this point you have 4 approves and 1 reject. And there's particular reasons why I'm doing the votes the way I am, because in this particular case, we know for sure that this player here either knows that he himself is a spy of resistance and therefore this other guy is spy of resistance. So there would be no reason for him to throw an approve on here, because throwing an approve obviously means that, hey, the other guy must have been a spy, so I'm okay with that. So that's why he threw the reject. But at the same time, he may be also okay with it because, again, this other person here, if he thinks that it's a spy, then he might be fine with that too. Well, it's hard to figure out, why the approves and rejects are the way that they are. But like, for example, the one that was rejected, you know for sure that it was probably a really bad idea. If you're wanting to do well, and let the resistance win, that you probably don't want to send those people. But at this point, we know that this particular mission's been approved. So usually we do our vote box. Now again, you have to shuffle these because you don't want anyone to actually know who threw what card. So at this point we have a success, and a success. So now this particular mission was approved. So we're good on that. Now at this point the resistance are probably like, we're doing pretty well. We had 3 people going to mission, everything passed, doing pretty much fine. Now and this here will be reset because a mission did go through, but then if there are 5 in a row that get rejected, the game itself will end. So that is the bulk of the game itself. Now this goes over 5 rounds. So let's say the 2-person mission succeeds, then fails, then fails. Actually, we'll leave this one open for now. So at this point, it's the best out of 5. So in this case, we have 2 failed missions, 2 succeeded missions. If this were to succeed, the resistance wins. If it were to fail, then this particular mission, this game would probably end. Well, the game itself would end badly for the resistance. Now at this point, you probably have different ideas as to who at this table were spies and who were resistance, though you only had been able to watch 2 votes. Now if you were to watch the other 3, 2 more votes, it might give you a little bit better of an opinion. But from what you see at the table so far, it's going to be hard to disseminate that without, the negotiation that usually goes on with it. Because normally you would have 5 people at this table that are all making different arguments as to why they are good guy or bad guy. Generally you're not going to argue for being the bad guy, but sometimes at some point you're just like, well, they kind of know at this point because maybe I threw fails multiple times and I made a really bad argument, or I laughed hysterically when they accused me of it. But either way, at the end of 5 rounds, the game itself ends, and then at that point, the spies and resistance will reveal each other, reveal themselves. In this particular game, we had a resistance, spy, resistance. Now with the first vote, you had the 2 here. Now he threw the fail to mess up this one here. Now the second vote was, this person, this person, this person. Now the spy did go on, but he threw a success. Now the reason this might be important is that maybe he wanted to throw more attention to this guy here and make him look like the bad guy. Because as long as he looks like the bad guy, maybe one of these 2 will not look like the bad guy on it. So there's a lot of different strategies that are involved with it and different variations that make the game better. Now there are a few additional rules too that you can play with. As I mentioned, this is if the spies are blind. So in this case, you didn't actually see anyone look at each other and say, okay, this person's spy, this person's not. But normally, at the beginning of the game, if you played with spies know who the other spies are. I don't usually recommend this without the Merlin variation, and I'll explain a little bit more of that as well. Alright, so we have different players here. Now if you're playing where spies know each other, at the beginning of the game everyone's going to close their eyes, put their head down, or do something so that no one actually can see anyone else do anything. Now, that being said, at that point you're going to be like, okay, now all spies raise your head and look at each other. The spies will raise their head, look at each other, just to make sure they know who they're working with at the table here. And then at that point, spies will lower their head, everybody raises their head, and the mission continues. Now, because of, there's a version called Avalon, which has something called Merlin. Now, will let us know which card is Merlin. We put a sticker on it. The reason we do this, we actually do have a Merlin card. But the problem is, now I know the fix to it's fairly easy. We can get colored sleeves, but normally you'd have like a Merlin card and an assassin card. These are special cards that are designed for this. Now these actually came out of a different print, so the backs are a little bit different colored, not by a lot, but if you were to pay a lot of attention to it, you could probably actually figure out which one these are just by kind of looking at the back, because it's a little bit of a different color. As I said, it's not going to be really noticeable far away, but these ones are a little bit darker. Not by a lot, just a little bit. Because these actually came from a different box set, so it's fully understandable as to why. So it's not like it came with the base game itself, but this is just another variation of the game itself, is the Merlin and Assassin. Now the point of Merlin is if you're playing where spies know each other, this adds a whole nother level of intrigue to the game. I really recommend it after people kind of understand the basic game itself. Then usually incorporating Merlin and Assassin at the end is a really neat way of playing the game as well. So we have, so let's replace this person with a Merlin. As I said, we use a sticker on it because this is actually a card that came from the base edition itself. And So we use a sticker because it actually has the same back, because it came from the same print as the rest of them. But for the purposes of the game itself, we are going to replace these and put the expansion version in it. Now the expansion version of it is basically the game called Avalon. If you hear the Resistance Avalon version, this is basically what it incorporates, is Assassin and Merlin. So now when the spies reveal themselves, they're actually going to see who the other spies are. So like these two know who each other are. Now they're going to put their head down, and then usually what I have them do is raise their hand. So at that point, Merlin is going to raise his head and see, okay, these are who the spies are. Now the spies don't know who Merlin is, but Merlin knows who the spies are. Merlin is all-knowing in this particular game. He knows who everyone at this table is. So he knows who the Resistance are, he knows who the spies are. Now it's a very powerful ability, as you can obviously tell. However, the goal of the Assassin is actually to kill Merlin. So his actual goal will be to kill the Merlin person here. So now, if you've seen how the game itself plays already, then you'll know that it's still going to be best out of 5. So you go through the 5 votes. At the end of who did the best of 5, that'll be the winner. Now this game will be a little bit extra special now, because the Assassin has a moment of redemption. They get to try to redeem themselves by killing the Merlin. If the spies can come up to a conclusion, usually I have them conclude together, or you can have it to where the spy makes the final decision on it, but normally we just have the spies kind of choose together, but the Assassin actually has his final say on it. So he decides that this player here was the Merlin, because they thought at the end of the game this person was showing a lot of information that might have been a Merlin. The card would be revealed, and then the spies lose because they did not choose the right one. Now if they did choose Merlin, let's say that the Resistance did really well. Well, not particularly well, but they did well. They won the game. At this point they chose Merlin. Merlin reveals the card. It is Merlin. The spies will win because they actually found Merlin and killed him. So even though they won this particular part of the game, the spies will actually take the victory because they found Merlin. So now why this all matters is that the spies know who each other are, and they also are trying to fail the missions like normal. Merlin knows who everyone is. That's a lot of good information. However, if Merlin goes, hey, I'm Merlin, you're Resistance, I'm Resistance, so those two are spies, you're going to run into a quick problem, because let's say those two believe you, and you get 5 victories, because obviously the Resistance all know each other. The Assassin then can go, you're obviously Merlin, I'm going to kill you, reveal, Resistance still loses, because they lost the round itself, because Merlin is dead. So the goal of the game itself is to still get your normal victory without losing your Merlin in the process. So it's pretty neat variation to the game itself, but that's 2 main variations of the game itself, and kind of the how-to of playing Resistance itself. Thank you for watching Rundlii Gaming, and you have a good day.